Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the second in a series of several Vedic astrology classes. We're just working on the introduction to Vedic astrology at the moment, and we're going to try something a little different for class number 2 than we did for class number 1, which is we're going to keep the class format shorter. Try to keep it to about 4 or 5 minutes and just handle this all in bite-sized chunks, because in the world of YouTube, most times people don't want to sit for anything longer than 5 to 10 minutes, and many times people are ready to move on. So speaking of moving on, let's move on and talk about what we're going to talk about today, which are the lunar mansions of Vedic astrology, which are called the nakshatras. I'm going to write that down for you. Nakshatras. Nakshatras basically translates to mean constellation or stars. So the nakshatras, or the lunar mansions, are the fixed stars of the constellations, right? So let's talk about these a little more deeply. In Vedic mythology, the nakshatras are considered to be the wives of the moon. Now, why are they considered to be the wives of the moon? Because over the course of a lunar month, the moon will journey through one of these in about a day to a day and a quarter, day and a half. I'm not going to get into precision with that for the sake of this class. We'll do that in the nakshatra class, okay? But the moon will journey through these in approximately 1 to 1.5 days. The moon will journey through each of these. So they're known as the wives of the moon. And there are 27 of these that we use for the purpose of chart interpretation or chart delineation. There is actually a 28th nakshatra or lunar mansion, but it isn't used in chart delineation. And we're not going to go over every single one of these today. We're just going to touch on the concept because this is just an introduction class. So in Vedic mythology, the wife of a particular deity represents the deity's Shakti, or the deity's power. Now the moon, being a deity, is indicative of consciousness as well as growth. So the function of the nakshatras are to grow consciousness of the planet that is placed within them. The nakshatras grow the consciousness of a planet that is placed within that particular nakshatra in a specific manner. Now, the nakshatras can be understood as subdivisions of a zodiac sign. But I really want to clarify that from the outstart, because if you'll remember from the first class, and if you haven't watched the first class yet, you might want to go back and watch that. But if you'll remember from the first class, the zodiac is created due to the relationship between the Earth and the Sun. Basically, the zodiac pardon me, getting a little tongue twisted there. The zodiac is the ecliptic, which is the apparent path of the sun, broken down into 12 30-degree sections. So the zodiac, repeating stuff from last class, is the ecliptic, which is the apparent path of the sun, broken down into 12 30-degree sections. Okay? Now, the nakshatras, lunar mansions, the constellations, they exist outside of our solar system. So they are not connected necessarily with that relationship between the Earth and the Sun. Now, I like using this as a model because if you recognize the fact, or at least most of us, are here on Earth, and I use that guardedly because sometimes my head's way up in the ethers and I feel like I'm on Neptune or Mars or some other planet. But if you consider that we're, earthbound souls here to learn a lesson, right? The zodiac, or our birth chart, each sign within our birth chart, which the signs are called rashis in Vedic astrology, those represent the relationship to our consciousness that we go through here on the planet in this incarnation. So it's only right and appropriate that that should be connected to the Earth and the Sun and the interrelationship between the two. Okay? Now the nakshatras are outside of this solar system. They're the fixed stars of the constellations. And if you go back to watch the first class, you'll understand this a little more deeply, right? So on a certain level, they're subdivisions of the zodiac sign. A nakshatra is basically 13 degrees and 20 minutes, and they are placed within specific signs, but their energy exists outside of the concept of the signs as well. So in doing chart delineation, you can understand a lot about how the person's consciousness is going to grow in relationship to a specific planet by looking at the lunar mansion that it's placed in. But the lunar mansion will always operate under the energy of the sign that it's in. The sign or the Rashi that it's in always supersedes the energy of the lunar mansion. Now we're going to take a look here at Albert Einstein's chart. I'm going to bring up my pointing tool and point something out to you. Over here I'm going to put an arrow, and just ignore my name that's there, but what I want to bring to your attention within this area is the Sun and Mercury, which are within 10 degrees of each other. They're not in the same sign, but that is still considered a conjunction. And you'll notice that there are some letters up above it that say UBH. That's the nakshatra or lunar mansion of Uttara Bhadrapada. Now, when the Sun, which is very brilliant, and Mercury, which is related to the mind, conjunct each other, that gives the individual a brilliant insight in some area of their life. Now, interestingly enough, with the Sun conjunct Mercury in Uttara Bhadrapada, Uttara Bhadrapada relates to that aspect of the unknown that, when it's revealed to us, enters our life and shatters every single paradigm. So Albert Einstein had a brilliant mind that was able to plumb the nether regions of consciousness and pull this concept out about his theory of relativity. A very amazing mind, and that's illustrated through the Sun conjuncting Mercury in the lunar mansion of Uttara Bhadrapada. This is just one way of understanding the lunar mansions. Just giving you a brief interpretation. I could really pick this entire chart apart and bring up so many other things, right? But we're not going to go into detail with that. I just want to touch briefly on the fact that the nakshatras are something that's very specific to Vedic astrology. There are lunar mansions in other systems of astrology, but within this system of astrology, Vedic astrology, these particular lunar mansions or nakshatras are very unique. And they add an extra tone, an extra layer of understanding to the chart that allows the understanding to get a little more precise. So you're no longer just dealing with Mercury in Aries and the Sun in Pisces. You're dealing with the Sun in Pisces conjuncting Mercury in Aries, and both of those planets in Uttara Bhadrapada. And you can give a very brilliant interpretation based simply just upon that alone. Now, I recognize I went over the time limit I said I was going to do. Hey, we're all the way up to 8 minutes, but I tend to get a little long-winded sometimes, and make no apologies for myself in that area. But hopefully that wasn't too long for you. The next class we will touch on the Vargas, which are smaller charts that are used in Vedic astrology, and we'll go a little more into detail on that in the next class. If you have an interest in learning Vedic astrology, in addition to these brief classes that are posted on my YouTube page and on my website, I also offer an interactive class that's done using the very system that I'm using here today, which allows me to share charts with you, annotate notes on the chart, and we get to have a discussion over the points that I'm teaching, and it all gets saved as a video that you can go back and listen to over and over again for review, and it allows you personal interaction with me as your teacher. And if you're interested in that, there is a link that you'll see on the page in one of my little annotations up in the corner of this video. Also as well, please do subscribe to this page so that you can get regular updates whenever another video is posted. And that's going to do it for this second class of the Vedic Astrology class series. Until next time, please do enjoy yourself and do take very good care of yourself.